Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions, the mystery of ancient maps that shouldn't exist, the Piri Reis, Oronteus Finaeus, and Buache Maps. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. In 1929, scholars working in the Topkapi Palace library in Istanbul discovered a map drawn on gazelle hide in 1513 by Ottoman admiral Piri Reis. The map showed South America with striking accuracy for its period. It also showed a large landmass to the south that some researchers would later claim was Antarctica, mapped 307 years before the continent's official discovery in 1820. Two other maps compounded the mystery: the Oronteus Finaeus world map of 1531, which showed a southern continent with mountain ranges and river systems, and the Philippe Buache map of 1739, which appeared to depict an ice-free Antarctica, owing features under the ice sheet not confirmed by seismic survey until the 20th century. In 1966, geographer Charles Hapgood argued all three derived from a common set of ancient source maps, copied from charts made before the last ice age by a now-vanished civilization capable of global navigation. The argument was compelling enough that Albert Einstein wrote Hapgood a supportive letter. It was also wrong, but the maps themselves remain extraordinary documents that deserve explanation. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the wider world of ancient technological anomalies, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. The official story of technological progress follows a reassuring arc: stone tools giving way to bronze, bronze to iron, iron to steel, and finally, the Industrial Revolution catapulting humanity into the modern age. In this narrative, each generation inherits a slightly more sophisticated toolkit than the last, and no knowledge is ever truly lost. It is a comfortable story. It is also, in key respects, demonstrably false. History is littered with technological achievements that appeared centuries before their supposed invention, vanished after the cultures that created them collapsed, and were reinvented, often with great difficulty, by later civilizations who had no idea the knowledge had ever existed. Roman concrete was stronger and more durable than most modern concrete, and was not matched again until the 21st century. Greek fire, the incendiary weapon that protected the Byzantine Empire for centuries, has never been fully reproduced. Damascus steel, capable of holding an edge that modern metallurgists struggle to replicate, disappeared with the craftsmen who made it. These are not myths. They are documented historical losses of genuine technical knowledge. When we encounter an object from the ancient world that should not exist, a battery from Baghdad dated to the Parthian era, a computing mechanism salvaged from an ancient shipwreck, a map showing geographical features that were not officially discovered for another millennium, the temptation is to dismiss it as misidentified or misstated. That dismissal is sometimes warranted. But when such objects accumulate, when the pattern becomes too consistent to ignore, the honest response is to ask whether our model of ancient capability is simply wrong. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding ancient maps that shouldn't exist, the Piri Reis, Oronteus Finaeus, and Buache Maps, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The Piri Reis map was drawn in 1513 by Haji Muhyiddin Piri ibn Haji Mehmed, known as Piri Reis, an Ottoman admiral and cartographer. Discovered in the Topkapi Palace library in 1929, the map shows the Atlantic Ocean with the coastlines of Europe, Africa, and the Americas. Piri Reis annotated the map extensively, stating he compiled it from approximately 20 source maps, including a chart attributed to Christopher Columbus and 8 Ptolemaic maps. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the Oronteus Finaeus world map, published in 1531 in Paris, shows a large southern continent labeled Terra Australis with apparent mountain ranges, river systems, and a relatively ice-free coastline. Details that Hapgood argued could not have been invented without actual survey knowledge of the Antarctic continent. The Finaeus map predates Captain James Cook's circumnavigation of Antarctica in 1773 by over 2 centuries. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. The Philippe Buache map of 1739 shows the Antarctic continent split into 2 landmasses by a sea channel running through the interior, a feature that corresponds to what lies beneath the modern Antarctic ice sheet as revealed by 20th century seismic surveys. Hapgood cited this as evidence that Buache had access to source maps made before the ice sheet formed, when the subglacial topography was above sea level. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, Charles Hapgood, a professor at Keene State College in New Hampshire, published maps of the ancient sea kings in 1966, arguing that the 3 maps derived from a common archive of ancient charts showing the world as it appeared before glaciation, implying a globally capable pre-ice age civilization. Albert Einstein wrote Hapgood a supportive letter in 1953, before the book's publication, regarding an earlier manuscript, lending Hapgood's work a prestige that outlasted scholarly assessment of its methods. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of the United States Air Force was drawn into the Piri Reis controversy in 1960 when Lieutenant Colonel Harold Ohlmeyer of the Strategic Air Command wrote a letter stating that the southern portion of the Piri Reis map appeared consistent with the subglacial topography of Antarctica as mapped by the International Geophysical Year surveys. This letter was subsequently misrepresented in popular accounts as official Air Force certification of the map's accuracy. It was a personal observation, not an official military endorsement. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. Cartographic conventions of the 15th to 18th centuries included the theoretical requirement for a large southern continent, terra australis incognita, to balance the landmasses of the northern hemisphere. This mathematical principle, derived from Ptolemy and adopted by Renaissance cartographers, led mapmakers to draw a southern continent as a conventional feature regardless of actual survey knowledge. Ptolemy's influence on Renaissance cartography was profound and documented. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain ancient maps that shouldn't exist. The Piri Reis, Oronteus Finaeus, and Buache Maps. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that Hapgood's hypothesis that the three maps were copied from ancient source charts made by a pre-Ice Age civilization capable of global navigation and precise cartography. A civilization that existed before 4000 BC and left no other archaeological trace. This theory requires the maps to show accurate Antarctica before its discovery and before the ice sheet formed. It has been rejected by cartographic historians on the grounds that the supposed accuracy is not as precise as claimed, and conventional explanations account for all the features observed. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence. But it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that cartographic convention accounts for all three maps. The southern continent in Phineas and Buache derives from the mathematical terra australis tradition, not from survey knowledge. While Piri Reis's southern landmass is a distorted representation of South America's southern coast rather than Antarctica. This is the consensus position of professional cartographic historians and is supported by the documented use of Ptolemaic frameworks in all three maps. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that the Piri Reis southern landmass represents Patagonia or Terra del Fuego at a distorted scale resulting from the projection method used, and was misidentified as Antarctica by Hapgood and subsequent researchers. Orientalist Paul Carl demonstrated in 1956 that Piri Reis used a different projection convention from modern maps, and that his southern coastline corresponds to South American features at a projection-corrected scale rather than to Antarctic geography. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree, That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding ancient maps that shouldn't exist, the Piri Reis, Oronteus Finaeus, and Buache Maps, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes Piri Reis's own annotations on the 1,513 map state explicitly that he compiled it from approximately 20 existing source maps, including Columbus's chart, 8 Ptolemaic maps, and Arabic sources. He makes no mention of ancient pre-civilizational sources. The documented compilation methodology is fully consistent with the map's features without requiring ancient mystery sources, and Piri Reis is a historically attested figure whose other maps and writings survive. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented. Paul Carl's 1956 analysis demonstrated that the Piri Reis southern continent corresponds to Patagonian and Terra del Fuego geography at the scale and projection Piri Reis used, not to Antarctic coastline. This finding has been confirmed by subsequent cartographic analysis and represents the scholarly consensus on the map's southern features. The identification of the landmass as Antarctica rather than distorted South America requires selectively matching some features while ignoring significant discrepancies. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed. Gavin Menzies's related claim in 1421 that Chinese fleets mapped Antarctica before Columbus reached the Americas was similarly rejected by professional historians of cartography and of Chinese naval history. No pre-Columbian source maps of any kind have been found in any archive worldwide. The entire ancient source map hypothesis rests on the absence of a record that cannot be confirmed to have existed. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding ancient maps that shouldn't exist, the Piri Reis, Oronteus Finaeus, and Buache Maps. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Cartographic historians have comprehensively addressed all three maps within conventional frameworks, and the academic rejection of Hapgood's thesis is essentially unanimous among professional historians of cartography. The Piri Reis map is genuinely valuable as an early document of European exploration and Ottoman geographical knowledge, and is studied seriously in that context. Omer's letter has been repeatedly misrepresented in popular accounts as official military validation. It was not. Hapgood's influence persists strongly in alternative history communities and was substantially amplified by Graham Hancock's work. Genuine pre-Columbian cartographic achievement in Polynesian wayfinding navigation, which allowed settlement of the Pacific with extraordinary precision, represents a real and underappreciated story of ancient navigational capability that does not require invented sources. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of ancient maps that shouldn't exist. The Piri Reis, Oronteus Finaeus, and Buache Maps, from the historical record through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Piri Reis map ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process, and the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.